What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hawks Film Room podcast, hosted by yours truly, David Lee, aka D43. Please like, subscribe, share the podcast, tell a friend, whatever it may be. Um, I waited to do the pod after the Blazers game because it felt like with an impending matchup with the Mavs team, felt like the reasons and some of like the biggest factors and why we lost to Portland would be pretty common in the way we lost to Dallas. Okay. And unfortunately, it did feel like that was correct. And this common theme or thread that I'm talking about is just a general lack of size. Okay. Now, this has been exacerbated to the nth degree with Jalen Johnson out with injury. But I'm going to give you a list of some games throughout the season where I feel like the biggest contributing factor was us losing was the lack of size. Okay. Tonight versus Dallas, Portland the night before, Miami on the 27th of May, Houston on the 25th, Denver on the 1st, the Clippers and the Lakers games, both of them. All three of our losses against Detroit, the game against Denver on the 8th, and then the Portland game on November 17th. So there's two things I want you to notice here. There's a consistent theme with certain teams, right? Portland, Miami, Houston, Denver, Clippers, Detroit. Then the other thing, a lot of these are games where Jalen Johnson was out of the lineup. So Jalen went out for the season after the game against Toronto, the second game that we played against them here in Atlanta, which, by the way, we lost both, the 27th. Since then, there's been a number of games that I highlighted where I feel like size in particular is why we ended up losing that game. Like, that is the reason. Outside of things we could control, right? So, like, these were games that we were capable of winning. But it eventually came down to the lack of size. Like, for example, when we didn't have Jalen against Minnesota, and that ended up being like a drag it out, knuckle out game. Yeah, I mean, you could say you can win because of Jalen, but I think ultimately that game did not come down to the lack of size of the four. But all the rest of these, I feel like they did. Now, it's for a litany of different reasons. Okay, tonight against Dallas, I mean, you're playing 3 7-footers, and your options with Onyeka on the bench is Don Barlow or Mohamed Gay or George Niang at the 4. Now, there's some other things they could have done to try and make that as amenable as possible. We'll talk about it. But that really is what boiled down to tonight's game. Portland had a 39. They rebounded 39% of their misses. That's 92nd percentile, and they shot 70% at the rim. Miami, the 27th, they were able to hold Atlanta, who's a good offensive rebounding team, to just 17.9%. Houston, we fouled them a lot. Houston, very high turnover percentage and a low offensive rebound percentage for Atlanta. Denver, they got almost 50% of their shots at the rim, and they shot almost 80%, like in both games. The Clippers, again, were able to hold us to a low offensive rebound percentage. We fouled them a ton. Detroit, we fouled them a lot. And Detroit's one of those teams where you just have to watch them and see how they play against the Hawks, and you see the massive size and athleticism disadvantage, right? Especially with Jalen off the floor. And then that same story with Portland back in November 17th. They also killed us on the offensive glass, and they got almost 50% of their shots at the rim, right? Now, the average margin across these games, 11.46. I know that sounds like a big number. It's because the Clippers, BTA, they blew us out. Denver blew us out, and the Lakers blew us out. But there were actually some pretty close margins with Detroit. Detroit's biggest win over us was 10 points. We had a game come down to 4 points, I think, against them, and then 1 point. And then, of course, we had the game winner. They also beat us by 2. The Portland game in November was close, and the Dallas game tonight, of course, came down to just a handful of possessions. And here's the thing: like I was listening to a podcast that said it was from I'm forgetting the guy's name, but yeah, he was a former basketball director of analytics for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he said like the best clutch stat is having 0 clutch games, and for a team like OKC, which has 50 double-digit wins this season, it's been obviously a very different reality for the Hawks. Like they've been in a ton of clutch games because of lack of offensive consistency or the massive disparities in the effectiveness of their lineups with Trey off the floor and Onyeka off the floor as of late, right? And so when it comes down to the clutch, like does against Dallas, and you have these innate disadvantages, then it's harder to be able to execute well on both ends when you could really just try and keep the game out of those clutch situations, right? And ideally, that's where the Hawks will be within next season. But I think my biggest takeaway, because I was asked this, in one of my group chats we talked about the Hawks was like my biggest takeaway from the game, and it's two things. This team really needs size. Okay, I think we've been talking about that all season. Now, when I say that, I want to make sure this is not a loss that's on Onyeka. Okay, um, I think he had as good of a game as you can ask, considering the task he had defensively. He played 40 minutes. This is the most minutes he's ever played in a game that didn't go to OT. Okay, for his career, he's never really cracked more than 36 or maybe even 30 minutes before he started this season. Gave us 20, 14, and 2. Shot 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 7 of 15 from the floor. I thought there were a couple moments where I was like, man, I really just wish he would be stronger around the rim at times. We'll look at some of those. Gave the Hawks 11 defensive rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds. With Onyeka on the floor, the Hawks were they had a plus 5.8 net rating. With him and Trey on the floor, they had a plus 18, and that was in 30 minutes. The Hawks were able to rebound the ball pretty decently well, 53.4% of the available rebounds. They were really good on the defensive glass, 90.6%, right? That's really important against a team with 7-footers. You can't give them extra chances. With Onyeka off the floor, that dropped to just 66.7%. And then the offensive rebounding percentage dropped as well. And that was in just the 7 minutes that he was off the court, right? It's really hard, for a team to really see that big of a difference when you have one guy go off the floor, but that's just the reality of where this team is right now. Like Clint Capella is not playing, or when he was playing, he was relatively ineffective at times, although he definitely is better at being a center than Donovan Barlow. And then Larry Nance is hurt as well. So there's not a lot of options for Quinn. I don't think that means he gets a huge or, I want to give him some levity, of course, for that situation. Like you don't have NBA level guys playing in the front court. That's the reality. Okay. But with that being said, I don't think that you can go into this game knowing that you're playing a team that has 3 7-footers and that for 48 minutes, they will have a 7-footer on the court. That's how Dallas is going to play. Mohamed Gay plays 14 minutes. I don't think that's possible. I just don't think you can do that. He plays 14 minutes, and in the minutes that he did play, the Hawks defense had a 90.3 off defensive rating. Now, again, this is a small sample size. He only played 14 minutes. But in the minutes that he was off, it spiked to almost 130. The rebounding was better with him on the floor. The lineups were amenable. They were viable because you had him out there with Don Barlow for about 2 minutes of the 8 minutes that Don Barlow played. The minutes that Barlow did not play with Mohamed Gay, I mean, the Hawks were getting absolutely torched. And I understand, too, from Quinn's perspective, Mohamed Gay did not have a great offensive game. Right? He finished with 11, ended up shooting 5 for 13. But the way that the Mavs were guarding him, his hesitancy offensively, I think that's more so what led to him not being on the floor, right? Not the defensive effectiveness. But Mohamed Gay is now, at this point, he has the third biggest on-off swing of any Hawk. Okay, it's Trae Young. It's Dyson Daniels, Trae Young, and then Mohamed Gay. And as much as that's a testament to how Mohamed Gay has gotten better over the last couple of years, it's also just a really great point about. Sorry, it's the first one. It's Jalen and then Trae. Sorry, not Dyson and Trae. Jalen Johnson, Trae, Mohamed Gay, Onyeka Okongwu. Those are the 4 most impactful guys in terms of their on-off differential this season. And, of course, we know what Trae does offensively. We know what Jalen does for this team on both ends. We know what Onyeka does in comparison to Clint Capella. And as much as Onyeka and Mohamed Gay have improved, it's also about the guys who are replacing them, right? And the Hawks' other options at the 4 with Mohamed Gay off the floor, with Jalen Johnson hurt, Larry Nance hurt, they're not great. Don Barlow, as much as he was a great pickup for a two-way, he's a two-way player. He's a G League player who's still developing, right? And I want to read this quote that was posted by Kevin. He covers the Hawks. He was saying that at the presser after the Portland game, Brad Rowland had asked about the some of the thought process of playing size, right? And the issue what Quinn said is that the Hawks are going to be small every time except when Mo plays. And so that tells you 2 things. It tells you that he sees Mo as a 4 and that he sees Don Barlow as a 5. And when you're going to be very static with that, you're only going to have so many options. And against Portland, they tried to do something different. They had Mo Gay out there with Don Barlow. They had only played 13 minutes before. In tonight's game, they did it for 2 minutes, and then the lineup was able to actually be a little bit viable. And then they didn't go back to it. Mo didn't play in the third quarter. I don't believe he may have came in for a little bit. Uh, oh yeah, he came in at the end of the third quarter. Sorry, he didn't play in the second quarter. Then he came in the third quarter and then played about like a minute in the fourth. So it's as much as I want to be frustrated about a loss because this is a game that was winnable. There were moments where they could have done things better. It's just like what else could you like? What else can you do? You know what I mean? Like what I thought they did interesting against Portland was they played Niang at the three, right? And they had Mo Gay out there and Don Barlow. I think that's something they could have tried tonight. You could have. The one thing you can't do is play lineups that have Karis LeVert, Vit Krejci, Georges Niang, Don Barlow. That lineup has been garbage all season. Tonight, it was the Hawks' worst lineup, okay? They got outscored by 8 points with those guys on the floor, and that was in just 2 minutes. And it's not doing Don Barlow any favors to put him on the floor with Vit Krejci, Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, and Trae Young. Like, he just is not a good enough defensive player to cover that up. And this is the worst part is that this is what happened in the third quarter, okay? This was in a part of a third quarter run where the Mavericks essentially took over the game. Like, this is where they won the game. It was a plus 17 run, 24-7. The Dallas was down 70. Sorry, Dallas had 70 points. They were down 11, and they ended up going up 6 at the end of this run. Anthony Davis had 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 6 field goals. The Mavericks shot 10 of 12 from the field over this stretch. And this ended up happening with Mohamed Gabe missed 2 shots, and then he ended up coming out the game. And then the Hawks brought in that lineup that I talked about after Onyeka came off the floor. And when they checked in Niang, Krejci, Dyson, Karis, and Onyeka, right, with about 4:30. Then they took Dyson out, and they checked in Niang, Krejci, Trae, Karis, Onyeka. And then a little bit later, Don Barlow, with 4 minutes, right, he closed the quarter at the center. From that point on, Dallas outscored them by 8 points. And that's kind of just like, that's the game right there, man. Like, it's to Quinn's credit, like I think like after the half, he tried to match Onyeka as much as he could with Anthony Davis. I think Onyeka did what he could against him, but it's tough. Like it's tough to find minutes where the Hawks can spell Onyeka while also putting out some lineups defensively that makes sense. Like I think honestly, if I could try and think about a way to do this, what I would want to see them do is really try to lean into the defensive side as much as they can when Trae's off the floor. So like play those lineups that, especially against a team like Dallas that doesn't have a ton of twitchy on-ball guards, like you could probably get away with putting Georges Niang at the 3 and then put Dom and Mo behind him in the front court and then throw Dyson out there. You could throw Vit out there at the 2. You could throw Karis. You could throw Terrence Mann. What you cannot do is put Trae Young, Krejci, Niang on the floor with Don Barlow as the anchor. It's never going. There's no way that can work because there's no one on the floor who can withstand physicality. There's no one on the floor who can defend the vertical spacing. There's no one on the floor who can just actually have any sort of size or semblance of respect on the defensive end. Like it's a lineup that has no chance defensively. Okay, but at the same time, it's like the Hawks ended up playing what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They played 10 guys tonight. Risacher gets 24 minutes. He wasn't great with some of the decision making, but like, do you want to try him at the 4? I don't know. I just think that they have to try these things a little bit differently because as good as Vit shot the ball, I mean, he's a minus 18, and you felt it on the defensive end. And you're putting Vit and Barlow in very disadvantaged positions defensively, right? It's not easy to figure out. But I think the things that Quinn could do to make it better aren't necessarily things that are going to solve the actual issue, right? Like he can try and cover up the lack of size as much as possible by matching Mo with Dom and trying to minimize Vit lineups with Georges Niang and Dom. But at the end of the day, man, like you're still going to be outsized against a team like Dallas. I think they would have had a better chance tonight. I think they probably would have come away with the win if they did not play that lineup because, again, that was the worst lineup they played all night. Like there was no lineup worse. Their best lineup came with Onyeka in place of that unit and Terrence Mann in place of Vit Krejci. And all those lineups too, if you look at the numbers with Vit, Niang, and Vit, Niang, and Trae, Those three guys with their numbers, with their minutes with Don Barlow versus their minutes with Onyeka Okongwu, like it is drastically different. Like it's a whole new world when they're out there with someone who can actually move defensively and anchor a defense, right? Like, and that's not, and Onyeka has still could be better on that end, but I mean they've played Trey, Veet, and Niang have shared the court for 121 minutes as a whole. They're a plus 12.7, but when they play with Barlow, it's a minus 8.8. Minus 8.8. When they play with Onyeka, it's a plus 15. Now, these are smaller sample sizes, of course. So, like, some of the numbers will be a little bit crazy, but the defense goes from like league worst to league best with Onyeka on the floor, just in place of Dyson Daniels on the floor in that unit as well, in place of Terrence Mann, and then Onyeka in place of Dominic Barlow. So, like, there are ways to make these combos work. There's ways to make V and Niang work. There's ways to make, Niang and the Terrence Mann. There's ways to make Niang and Levert. I don't really think you can make Don Barlow work with Trey, or Don Barlow with Krejci, or Don Barlow with Niang, not against a serious team. So that's what it really comes down to, man. Like it's really just not much else to do, but just try and address this problem in the off season. Hope guys get stronger, put them on a very, very, very detailed strength and conditioning plan. Like Jalen, Trey, well, sorry, when Trey can only get so big. Jalen, Dyson, and Zach, those three guys have to put on a considerable amount of strength for the Hawks to take, the step that they're poised to take this summer. So we're gonna walk through a couple clips from the game. So the Hawks started off with doubling Anthony Davis when he was in the post, and honestly, this Mavs team did a better job moving the ball than I expected. Najee Marshall in particular, I think he had like 7 assists. He even impressed me with some of his passing. But here you're gonna see them work the ball around outside the post. So typically, you don't want to double one pass away, but when that's your best perimeter defender and he's also the best at recovering, and that's the best player on the floor, so that's how you have to do it, right? But you can see the dangers of that here because Trey is he's defending this like he doesn't know that Risacher is there, right? Like he's trying to defend the pass to Clay because I don't think he's aware that Risacher is already rotated, right? Because Risacher technically technically Trey was on Clay, and so he just isn't aligned here with Risacher. So because of that, he's just funneling him into the defense, which means that Dyson, who smartly picked up Derek Lively here, although probably it should have been Mohamed Gay. Mohamed Gay should have stood there, and then Dyson would have got back to the corner. This ends up with him having to step up, and he's caught in no man's land. And then Mohamed Gay is also caught in no man's land. So just some of the difficulties I think they had navigating the way they were defending Dallas and their size. I think that was a good example of it. Here's a different look. So I thought Risacher was really active. Okay, not everything he did was great, but I thought he was really active today. So here he caught it in the corner, and then he drove the closeout. He's going to engage Anthony Davis here. I like that he puts his body into him, tries to fade away, but it's just it's too much length from AD. But him and Mohamed Gay they fight. Gay's able to make him try to chase out of bounds, and then Zach goes up quickly before Derek Lively can get there to the ball. So good stuff from the young guys there. This shot, I was like, this is crazy. So I believe this is just Dyson bringing the ball up the court. He's got Gafford on him, and Reese is going to come into this dribble handoff. Now I want you to watch this shot. Like that's, it's not easy. It's not something that most super young guys are going to do. They're trying to do some weird sort of peel switch here. The Mavericks are, and Ricochet goes up off his left and then his right, and he's able to float it over the charge attempt. This crazy finesse and great, adjusting what he's going to do on the fly. I mentioned a little bit about Onyeka not always going up strong. I felt here it's just like, man, like this is like there's no need for you to be fading away as the bigger guy, right? Yes, there's contact here. But I think like sometimes his balance can just get really disrupted, and it's not great to see from your big. I would prefer, obviously, he's not Shaq or anything like that, but against Spencer Dinwiddie, like use your frame, use your size. He's trying to sidestep the charge. I understand the concept here, but there's other options here than a fading away from the contact, especially like the refs are not going to respect that. There's contact here, and if in a just world this would be called, but I think I'd rather him go aggressive here or spin off of this, or like here you have the opportunity to spin, or you can hop step, or you can gather, you can power dribble. But this is not good. When he gets wide like that, he loses his power, especially his explosive power, and that's why he ends up missing this layup because he's going away from the basket. He also had the kick off option, kick out options here too. With Clay sinking, and you could have got this out of Terrence Mann, and then he probably would have been able to get it to Zaccharie Risacher, but not great decision making here by Onyeka. One more Risacher float. I just really love the way he's able to just get creative and unorthodox here. So first, fluid behind the back to lose Jaden Hardy. Gather, hey, D-Cell, he's fallen to the floor, but watch how he just throws off the defender's timing because he's not expecting him to gather the ball like this. So that's the first step. Then he takes a shorter left one. He's going to wait for Jaden Hardy to fly by. He swipes down with both hands. Risacher is somehow able to shoot this. Well, he knows he's in a super awkward position, kisses it off the glass. I'm just so excited. I just love seeing him grow. Like, I'm not putting a ceiling on this kid. I think the ability to be able to change your timing, be unorthodox with your rhythm, your pace, it's really hard for defenders to react when you do things like that. Let's see. This play, yeah, this is some sort of defensive connectivity, and I wonder what the Hawks principles are here. I don't know as much as I watch them. I still don't know. So here, Karis LeVert matched up against Klay Thompson. Kai Jones is going to come down and somewhat occupy Dyson Daniels, who's Jaden Hardy's right here. And you see that Karis is aware of that. So he's like, hey, Dyson, Onyeka, pay attention, because of the way that basically after Kai, drives down, Dyson's going to zone up a little bit against him and Jaden Hardy. And then Onyeka's going to stay in Spencer Dinwiddie's driving path. Now, Karis is communicating this at this same moment. You get an exchange, right? Typically, exchanges are on the corner, and it's like the person who's on the wing and the corner exchange. Here's from the top of the key in the wing. Karis is going to point out to Niang, hey, Niang, pick up Clay here. I don't think he should be doing this. First off, because Niang can be slow to react and even slower to move. Karis had plenty of time to continue to follow Clay. It's not like there's a screen here that there's. Now, I'm sure the Hawks have some sort of principles or tendency that, and this is on Niang as well, but I just would have liked to see Karis stay connected here because it's just too much of a risk, especially when Niang isn't looking at him. He can't, typically when the player's exchanging in the corner, you could see the other player. So there's a couple examples like that. Here's another one. So after Clay gets downhill a little bit, he's going to kick it back out to Spencer Dinwiddie. Here the defense is supposed to reset, right? So the ball has been cleared out. Defense needs to reset. Niang is getting back to his guy, who is Najee Marshall. You can tell Onyeka does not know that Niang is next to him. He can't. All he sees is a gap in the defense. So he's flying out to go get him. And he's like, oh, wait. And he turns around, and Kai Jones is wide open. And, yeah, Kai Jones is one thing he's going to do is, make an open dunk. So not great communication there either. Unfortunately, I don't have the clip before this, but Zaccharie was able to prevent a cross-match in transition. So earlier, I think it was going to be Dyson on AD rolling down the lane. Zach was able to get a deflection. Shot clock resets. Here, he's going to be the low man here as Dinwiddie drives the ball against a Dyson closeout. First off, I want you to pay attention how quickly Dyson's able to get back out to him and how he's going to pinch. This is off a pick and roll. He's going to pinch the floor here against Derek Lively, so there's no easy lob. You have Onyeka lurking here too. And as soon as Dyson sees him lift his eyes up, Dyson's going the other way, right? So he's funneling him baseline into the help. He knows Onyeka is there, but Anthony Davis has slid over to the outside of the basket. So Zaccharie smartly picks that up, sees where the ball is going, deflects it off on Anthony Davis. Very, very good defensive play from Risacher. And that was right after he did another one early in the possession. Najee Marshall, 7 assists, man. I was definitely impressed. So this is in semi-transition. I believe this was after, this is after a Trae Young layup attempt. He ends up missing the layup. Dyson was going to crash offensive glass, so him and Trae are a little bit further up the floor than everyone else. Because of that, it's a 3-on-4. With the 3-on-4, no one gets matched up with Anthony Davis. At this point, it needs to be either Risacher or Onyeka. It looks like Onyeka he's looking around. He's looking around. He's no one. I don't understand. I don't understand how you can lose track of Anthony Davis. I don't know if it looks like at this point Onyeka's looking at AD. I assume maybe AD wasn't running up the floor at this point. And there's not the other thing is Trae is not actively guarding anyone either, so that doesn't help. because technically he would be the one to get Anthony Davis. And he does see him, but it's like you got to pick up Jaden Hardy there or Spencer Dinwiddie. So the small stuff, you can't afford to not do the small things when you're undersized and you have a disadvantage, which is what the Hawks have right now. I think one of the best signs of respect in basketball is when the defense changes the way they defend simply because you're in the game. So the Mavericks did not want to play zone when Trey was in, but when Trey came out, they put in Karras. They went to the zone. Hawks were not really able to create much of a dent at first. Then you're going to see Karras is getting to his bag. He's really gifted with the ball in his hands. So you see the in and out dribble. He's going to slow down a little bit, act like he's going to turn his back to him. He's going to burst through. Watch the push dribble to get it through this dig from Spencer Dinwiddie. So he's going to push it through under, and then he's going to get to a spot, fade away, and got his leg kicked out by Caleb Martin right in front of the ref, who I'm sure is looking at the shot instead. But, this is not a normal guarding position by any means. I don't know what that was. And then Karras still drains it, even though he got kicked, which is crazy. Big shot. And, I had tweeted that I'm a little bit cooled off a little bit on both him and Terrence Mann. I think LeVert's playing through an injury. I think Terrence Mann is just, both of them are being overextended to an extent. But, yeah, as their shooting has cooled off, their effectiveness has cooled off, which is to be expected. But when Karras can do things like that, I think he's adding value still. Here you're going to see Risacher's just his movement. So, again, the Mavericks are kind of in a zone here. Anthony Davis isn't really particularly guarding anyone here. He's guarding this area of the floor. Risacher knows that as the ball is going to be on this side of the floor, Anthony Davis is going to step over. So as Dyson drives, AD still has 2 feet in the paint, pretty much. Now he has crazy recovery ability. He has a crazy wingspan. Risacher knows that he can't bring this ball down. You bring this ball down, it's going to get blocked. Keeps the ball high. You see, he's even pointing as well. He's like, hey, I'm here. Keeps his, great shot prep, is able to slide to a spot, keeps the ball high, perfect form. Anthony Davis tries to get to it, probably just a couple inches away, and Zaccharie knocks it down over his wingspan. Let's see what else we got. This is a missed layup from Risacher here, but I think this is really good signs of his growth and confidence and aggression as a scorer. So he's driving the ball here. He sees Max in his driving lane, so watch this, quick look away. Max retreats, and there's a ball fake. That's the first step. Second step, drives into Anthony Davis, right? Initiate that contact, engage the shot blocker before he can engage you. And so because of that, when he goes up, Anthony Davis's timing is off. He still was able to get his other arm around, which ends up bothering Risacher. Might even get a hand on it from the way the ball moves. It looks like he might have gotten a hand on it. It ends up missing the layup, but really good approach from Risacher. Also, just a really good defensive play from Anthony Davis, but that's how you try to avoid getting blocked. So I thought that was a good rep from him. Here you can see we talked. Oh God, bro, I don't even want to watch these lineups, but Karras v. Don Barlow, Niang, and Trey. Okay, this is not a tenable defensive lineup. Mavericks are very intentional in attacking it. Okay, so this is coming out of somewhat of a horns look, but it's going to be actions over here to sort of just create a little bit of misdirections and confusion, right? So this pick and roll, I would like to see the Hawks just switch these. I mean, there's not much of an advantage loss here, if you end up switching these at any point, right? You can switch it here and put V on Caleb Martin, and then you can tag Gafford with Caris LeVert. Or if I'm from the way that V plays this, I assume that their scheme here is to try and let Dom show as much as possible, get back. Well, V tries to get back in the picture, but because V gets hung up on the screen, it's a long time for him to get back. Karras does a good job of engaging Gafford at first, but then he lets him go. But you can't let him go if Trey's going to be right there, right? You have to remain attached. You have to remain engaged. So not the best defensive communication. It looks to me, again, from the way watching V, that they're trying to show and recover here. But you just don't have the size to just let the roll man free. You don't. There has to be a different approach there. And unfortunately, they weren't able to pull it off. And then the Mavs got really aggressive with the way they were defending Trey. They were going to bring 2 early. And what that ended up doing was making Don Barlow make a decision he's not comfortable with. And there's no way he should ever take this shot. He has pretty good touch, but this is a win for the Mavericks every single time. I'd much rather him look to, get it to one of his guards, flow into a handoff with LeVert here. Shoot, you could even kick it to the corner for Zaccharie, right? But this is not a good shot. And that's what the Mavs wanted. You see the size length here, the size and lack of length here. So when Don Barlow goes to the offensive glass, which I don't know why you did that, man. Like, you were fully boxed out. Hawks have 3 guys down here on the offensive glass, which is, again, not good when you don't have size. Now, when the ball ends up getting reversed up the floor, Max Christie, again, knowing there's no size, to Dom's credit, he's running as hard as he can. Like, he gets up before it really fast. He's sprinting. He knows. He knows. You see the way he reacts. He's like, I'm supposed to be down there, and it's too late. You got the 2 guys down there who are probably the worst at defending the rim. Great move from Max because he ends up catching Trey's dig, and then Niang can't do anything. I'd rather you just foul him again, to be honest, than allow that to happen, because there's going to be a continuation call. And, this is a tougher shot from I don't even know if this. I think this is Caleb Martin. Tougher shot from Caleb Martin. Nice little fadeaway. Let's see. This was a big shot from Zaccharie. Again, they're bringing very aggressive help on Trey. Sort of betting on like no one else being able to beat them. Jaden Hardy, with the way that this pass is, the way they're defending this is a good look from Trey. Gets it over to Jaden Hardy. And I like that they have this going on the other side because it occupies these defenders. It makes it harder for Gafford to X out here because he's trying to figure out what's going on over here with AD trying to get to the screen. Open 3 for Zaccharie, who was having himself a night from the 3-1 line, even if the defense wasn't, super great. Now, Mo re-entered the game 4th quarter, right? We stopped seeing those Dom at the 5 lineups, thankfully. Here's the movement from Risacher. He's going to cut, clear out here. At that same time, you have Onyeka rumbling down the lane. So that engages multiple defenders. You have both Anthony Davis and Derek Lively commit to Onyeka. That's that roll gravity. But it's also because they're okay with letting Muhammad shoot, right? So I like this double drag look, which ends up being a solid screen set by Muhammad. You get both AD and Derek Lively committing, but the issue is the guy who's setting that screen, the initial screen, is Muhammad Gay. So they're okay with him shooting that 3 and ends up, not hurting them, and they get the defensive rebound. Could you have possibly ran this with Risacher? Yeah, but you're not getting that level of screen against Derek Lively. Like, this is, maybe even a defensive foul from the way that he elbows him and pushes off. But you're not getting that level of screen, right? But a good read from Trey. Just he's not able to knock it down, unfortunately. On the contrary here, Trey's going to, again, somewhat of a double drag look. It's just a ghost screen from Niang. And then Trey's going to, instead of going off this pick, he's going to go and reject it a bit. And then you get this really interesting second side stuff here, right? So you have, again, Risacher moving to clear Klay Thompson out. But now it's Terrence Mann who has Anthony Davis on him, knowing that he's going to be preoccupied with the paint, setting a back screen on Jaden Hardy and letting Niang flare. Again, Hardy takes a horrible angle. He's not a great defender. And now Niang is wide open, and that's too much space for a great shooter. So, again, like the Hawks, as much as I want to criticize, and I will criticize the end of game offense, I thought that their overall offense throughout this game was pretty good. You watch these clips, and it's like, okay, well, they're able to get what they want. Here, bringing 2 on the ball with about 10 seconds left. Spencer Dinwiddie comes. Trey gets it to the middle of the floor, and it's an automatic read for Niang. To get it to the cutter. Good finish from Onyeka around Anthony Davis, who had 5 blocks. There were a couple of missed layups by Onyeka that I was like, oh, man, bro, like, that could kill us. That could definitely kill us. So, Mann drives his closeout after the kick out from Onyeka. He gets to a fadeaway over Anthony Davis. Not the best shot. And then Onyeka's in a crowd here, and I think he rushed it just a little bit. You obviously can't put it back on the floor here, but he barely touched the ground before he went back up, which is why he got it off so cleanly. I think it's also why he ended up missing it, which is unfortunate. 4 minutes left, down 3. And then we get another miss, right? So on one end, you get this fading corner 3 that ended up being a 2 from Klay Thompson. Then pick and roll, right? Unfortunate. I don't think Dyson, it's hard for me to tell if Dyson was supposed to cut here. I think he was just trying to be opportunistic and, take advantage of where Spencer Dinwiddie is, but Klay's able to pick him up. And now when this layup opens up for Onyeka Okongwu, which would have been a wide open dunk, now Klay Thompson is there. Now, I like that Onyeka's going to read the help here. So on the catch, he's looking around. He sees that Najee's staying home against Terrence Mann. He decides to go up. But again, this is weak. it's just too weak for Klay Thompson to be the one defending you, man. Like you can't, obviously you can't just run him over, but it has to be stronger than this. It has to be. Even if it's going to be a dump off to Dyson, who's right there, as Dyson was ready, it has to be stronger than that, and it wasn't. And I think the good thing is he ended up making up for it, right? So the Hawks ended up getting the stop. That was a part of a brutal stretch where they ended up going almost 5 minutes without making a bucket. Hit a couple free throws, I think. But here comes the screen from Onyeka. Again, it's a great luxury to have Karras handling the ball and the clutch. Then he gets it to Onyeka Okongwu, ends up getting fouled and makes a free throw. A big shot. And then I thought this was a pretty bad shot. So the Hawks are down 2 here. High screen from Onyeka. You see the gravity from as a roller. Again, this is the smart things that they're going to do, right? So as they have Onyeka rolling, Spencer Dinwiddie is the guy who's supposed to be tagging him. And so because of that, Dice is going to set a screen on Klay Thompson, who wants to rotate to Caris LeVert. Now, this is where the reason why I think this is a bad shot, even if it is open, is that when you have Anthony Davis up the floor and not near the rim, let's try and get the ball in the paint right here. Even if it's Dyson, like I would have rather if Dyson opened up here and cut. Maybe that would have prompted the pass, but it's tougher. I don't think the play was intended to get to the paint, but I think that would have been a nice read from Karras to make this read over, whether it's over the top lob or even just a bounce pass to get it to Onyeka here. But I think he was definitely thinking about shooting first and foremost. Then Spencer Dinwiddie blessed the Hawks with 3 stupid plays. Like first, he misses Caleb Martin here, who's streaking right behind Trey. Like the ball should have been out of his hands here. It would have been pretty. I mean, Onyeka is there, but he's not exactly. And then he ends up taking a pull-up 3 with 18 seconds on the shot clock. It's just easy for the Hawks to rebound. Then he comes down again after a really big 3 from Trey here. So good screen and roll, but this time he's going to ghost it. You see that because they put 2 on the ball, Najee Marshall was occupied. He's worried about this. Trey puts the ball back on the floor after getting Najee to commit. Najee's still there. And then here comes the kick out. Again, watching the dig from Klay. They're going to leave Dyson open, but he's been big in these moments. He's hit those corner 3s. Again, Dinwiddie. Shout out Spencer Dinwiddie, man. He just kept giving us gifts, and that's what makes it so upsetting that the Hawks weren't able to capitalize. Bad shot. Hawks get the rebound, okay? Now they're up 1. 2 minutes left. Big shot from Onyeka here. Again, created by Karras's dribble penetration and second side creation. He's just going to steal here, right? So Karras is going to snake this pick and roll. Well, not snake it, but he's going to use it to engage Anthony Davis directly, and then Onyeka is going to smartly just seal and get the hook shot up and over before Anthony Davis can help. That's not an easy shot, and he makes it look easy. He has such great touch, bro. And then this is where it gets bad. Okay, Hawks have a 3-point lead. They get a stop. Trae Young dribbles the ball out for 24 seconds. There is very little action happening until the very end of the shot clock. You get Klay Thompson onto Trey. Again, there's very little action happening. And then it's going to turn into a step back. I wonder if you had any sort of window right there for Dyson into being a fadeaway 3 over Klay off one leg, foot on the line. It's pretty bad. I didn't even realize this pull on the line. It would have made it even worse. He barely draws iron. Mavs go the other way. Okay, mind you, that was about 24 seconds off the shot clock. Okay, now you got Trey on Klay Thompson. They're going to flow into a dribble handoff here as soon as Onyeka walls off AD's drive. So here comes AD's drive, walled off. Trey, I think, initially stays pretty attached. And then this is just like a Hall of Famer making a Hall of Famer play. It's not much that Trey can do here. Onyeka could have been a little bit higher, but of course, if you do that, Klay has seen these situations 1,000 times. If you blitz him here, if you show too high, he's just going to dump it off. And then as the only size on the floor, he can't show too heavily. Knocks the shot down. Okay, tie game, 41 seconds. Big shot from Klay. What do the Hawks do? Pretty much the same thing, man. Trey has the ball. Ends up, Caleb Owens takes it away. He drives past, gets a bit of a step, I almost wonder if he could have taken one more dribble or like try to reverse this. But at this point, with Trey's size, man, it's tough. It's tough. Like you're driving into Anthony Davis here, right? Anthony Davis is sitting here waiting for you as a right hand player. He's in your driving lane. And then of course, with the way the alignments are on the other side, like it's just not a lot of space for him to attack. And because he can't and doesn't really create separation here, you know, I almost would have like, is this going to be another shot attempt? You know, like it's a step back fader, or you maybe could have kicked it out to Onyeka here. He still somehow almost gets through, but ends up being a block. Okay, big play by AD, good play defensively by the Mavs. Then we get this ATO or this baseline out of bounds. So you're gonna have Trey screen for Dyson, and you're gonna have Karras going over the top. From here, you have to shoot this ball. You can't reverse it because ADs are there, but you have to, you have to go one dribble pump fake, or you have to go and explode. Dyson takes one dribble, and it gets forced out by Clay, if we're being honest. But under the basket, it's kind of tough. Clay forces him out, especially with the way his knee is. He looks for Onyeka. He just ends up throwing it off of Anthony Davis, who's not even looking at the ball. He doesn't even realize there's a pass coming. But throws it off of him, then AD gets to steal. And then here comes the final possession. So the thing that made me a little bit upset watching before this is that there was a cross match again in transition. You have Niang on Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis just holds the ball and then ends up fouling him with 7 seconds left. Onyeka was running down the floor and could have scrammed him out that situation. I mean, maybe the Mavs still call a timeout, but it would have been nice to see them figure out, let's scram this. Somewhat similar action, right? It's for the Hawks baseline out of bounds. It's just a bunch of screening. I think Onyeka does a good job here. He's driving to his left hand as a right-handed player. This shot is taken when he doesn't really have a step. He's not, within the painted area. He's fading backwards with his right hand. A great contest from Onyeka, considering his size and his wingspan. Like that's as good of a defense as you can ask. He just kisses it home. I mean, he didn't even hit the glass. I definitely thought it was off the glass. Hell of a shot. Let me get to the Hawks' final possession, man. So ball's going to Trey. You have to know in this situation the Mavericks are going to switch everything, right? So the reason why Niang's over here is eventually you're going to pull this player out of the play. Now Trey starts with Max on him, and he's going to run off this screen from Onyeka. And immediately the read. Now you can see where Dyson is looking here. Dyson is pretty much keyed in on Trey the whole time. He goes for a pass fake just to get Jaden Hardy to bite, but it's coming here. I don't really know what Karras is doing. It looks like Karras was maybe supposed to screen for Onyeka too, or come around and curl. I would have loved to have seen the Hawks try and figure out a lob pass over the top for Onyeka with the positioning he has on Max Christie. If Karras gets out of here a lot quicker, could you have thrown this over the top to Onyeka? I think maybe, especially with he held that position. And then I think Trey has to go faster. If he's still, the ball doesn't touch the ground until 3.4. He turns, opens up. You have to try and attack. You either have to one step back, 1, 2 fade away like he did against the Pistons, or try and beat him off the dribble. And unfortunately, those swipe downs aren't going to do anything against a player that much stronger than you, and he's not able to create enough separation. He jumps so high on these, which is hilarious. Trey has crazy ups in these scenarios, but air ball. Not the greatest shot, not the greatest offensive process from the Hawks down the stretch. But here's the thing, man. This Mavs team and the Blazers team as well. They're better teams than than their records. They're better matchups, or the tougher matchups for the Hawks than you may expect, especially after the Blazers sat everyone. But the Hawks, unfortunately, have not taken advantage of a softer schedule. Okay, I don't remember if it was the exact numbers, but we definitely had a bottom 5 schedule by strength of schedule after the All-Star break, or after especially over this stretch where they should have been building on a lead for 7th place instead of now being in a dogfight just to even stay in the play-in. With the way that the schedule's working out, like these Orlando Magic games are going to be incredibly stressful, especially with the way we play them this season. Magic are 37-40, Hawks are 36-40. The other 3 play-in teams are 6-4 in their last 10 games. The Hawks are 4-6. The Heat are on a 6-game win streak. Yes, the Miami Heat are on a 6-game win streak after losing 8 in a row. So, they've got to figure out a way to pick up a couple more wins. Okay, so on the calendar, they've got Knicks Saturday, who are playing better basketball as of late. Then they've got the Jazz, the Magic the 8th, the Nets the 10th, the Sixers the 11th, and then season finale against Orlando. I was asked on Twitter, like, where I think this team will finish and if we have any favorable matchups in the first round, like someone who we have a better chance against. I think we probably finish 7 or 8, more likely 8 at this point. We could have made a push for 6, but you kind of like make your bed and end up not being able to do that when you end up losing to the Nets, losing to the Heat, losing to the Blazers, and then losing to the Mavs. All right, they don't really have a chance anymore. But that would have been nice, although it would have been a first round date with the Knicks, anyways. But in terms of matchups, like I still feel like the Celtics are my favorite to come out of the East, but both of those teams are not going to be like the result's going to remain the same. You know, whether we play one of those teams or the other ones. I think we match up better against Cleveland just because of how switchable Boston is. But without Jalen, by the way, like 2-way players aren't eligible for the playoffs, so I don't know how the center situation would work. So yeah, I don't think it really matters who we play against. I would rather see us play Cleveland because I'm kind of tired of playing the Celtics. And again, I do believe that the Celtics are the best team in the league. They're also like playing the best basketball in the East right now. Like they did lose tonight against the Heat, but they're 9-1 over the last 10. Cleveland's 5-5. And that's not to say they're not capable of like pushing pushing Boston, or if they're not considerably a great team. But yeah, I mean, I'd just rather not play Boston. Quite honestly, a lot of my focus is on the upcoming season, not necessarily this season. I think it'd be good for our guys to get some playoff reps, but I'm not expecting any sort of Cinderella run or anything like that. But yeah, hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully the Hawks can get some retribution against the Knicks this Saturday. These last 2 games are tough to drop. I think they're indicative of things that they need to grow in terms of roster construction going forward, but not necessarily things that they can address right now, which is just sort of like the harsh reality of what happens when, Clint Capella doesn't play the rest of the season, Larry Nance goes out, Jalen Johnson's out for the rest of the season. You don't have size, man. And teams that have size, and on nights where your best shooters aren't knocking down shots and your offense is cooking with Trey off the floor and it isn't with him off, it's going to be hard to win games, all right? Especially when you're actually really dominating the minutes when you have your 2 most crucial players to your success on the floor, which is Trey and Onyeka at this point. So yeah, man. Hope you all had a great day. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you all enjoy the podcast. Process over results, and yeah, still a bright future ahead. No matter how frustrating these losses can be from time to time. But y'all have a great rest of your day. Y'all be safe.